Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Brave Zone podcast series. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, it will be a Brave Zone webinar series. Whatever it is for you, it's just a thing that helps you get better at what you do, the mental game of business, as well as the business strategies. Today, we have with us Erik Tanhava. Hi, Erik.
Hello.
Erik is joining me from Jakarta, Indonesia. He has lived there for a very long time. Erik is a lifestyle entrepreneur, property investor, speaker, and host of the podcast Millennial Power. For more than 20 years, he has successfully built and operated various IT and telecom businesses in Indonesia and have grown his property investment portfolio both in Indonesia and in the UK. He is the author of the book, The Lazy Money Machine, and is currently creating a personal development program for millennials in Indonesia to inspire them to deal with uncertainty and to feel more engaged at work. So I met Erik in 2009 when he was running a telecom business, and he was one of my favorite people to work with. So it's really nice to see you here again today, Erik.
Great. Thanks for all the accolades.
Yeah, well, you have done a lot, and to be fair, I think you're the type of person that keeps innovating himself,
Mm,
and it's kind of interesting because when I first knew you, you were just very like straight lined, and you got to do something consistently. So what has changed in the way you see business and how you do business that's allowed you to
mm,
be so innovative all these years?
mm. Um, well, a lot of my innovations haven't worked. So, I mean, innovation has two sides, right? Being innovative or doing a lot of new things can be good, but also a lot of the stuff that I did was basically just didn't go anywhere. So I think that's one disclaimer we need to make. But um, I think most recently, and I think it started about a year and a half ago or something, I really started. Well, actually, the real thing started in 2016. Um, in 2016, I had I had a lot of success with mobile content business, and we lost that in 2011. And I was in 5 years or the 4 years after that, I was like searching for something new to do, and we tried all sorts of things, and nothing really worked. And then in 2016, I was reflecting on my life, and I thought, what am I doing? This entrepreneurial life is actually, I was a bit fed up with it, and I felt there was something else that was wrong in my life. And I'm originally from the Netherlands, and I've been living now in Indonesia for over 20 years. And I thought, okay, I want to leave. I want to go back home. I want to go back to the Netherlands. Basically, I was fed up. So I wanted to leave. And instead of leaving, which I couldn't convince my Indonesian wife to leave this country, so we decided to go on a holiday. And not just a short holiday. We went on a holiday for 6 months. So basically, we drastically disrupted our life. I took my kids out of school, and one of the highlights of those 6 months was a 3-month trip through the US in a camper van. So we basically were traveling in an RV camper van, and we were traveling around the US and homeschooling the kids. And that caused a big reset in my life, realizing that time is quite short. Time with your children is very short. So why am I still doing stuff that I actually don't really like? It wasn't very successful. I didn't really like it. So then when I came back from the trip, I told my shareholders and my co-partner, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to leave. That was 2016. Since then, I basically have built up my property portfolio in the UK, and I'm doing some property here in Indonesia. And actually, I've still been searching for a while on what to do. I mean, it sounds like I've wasted a lot of time. Maybe I have. I don't know. So then 2017, 18, 19, yeah, a big shift for me came last year when I picked up a coach, a training program that got me to search for a lot more spiritual side of me. What do I really want to do? What's really important to me? How do I control the energies in myself and in the people around me? And when I'm stressed, I was pretty bad person to be around. So I think that trained me a lot in, trusting the universe, doing what you can, but not overdoing what you have to basically see, where life takes you and where your path takes you. And I think that brought me on a point where, look, if I am still going to do anything useful with my life, let me contribute, to other people instead of, just to the goal of making money. And I think that led me to starting Millennial Power, which is a personal development program for Indonesian millennials. We launched a book with that, and I'm planning to make online and live events for millennials to basically get hold of their life and do something different with their life and be really conscious about the choices they make and the way where they take their life. And it's quite early stages, but I mean, it seems a topic that has a lot of interest, and I'm trying to build that out. That's
Yeah.
a bit of a long answer to your question, but there's been a lot of soul searching, I think, on my side, and the fact that money is a result of adding value. I never really trusted that, but it's really true. So I'm trying to focus on the adding value bit, and then trusting that money will follow.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of uncertainty, isn't it? And
Mm,
a lot of what you deal with now, even and how you contribute to millennials in Millennial Power, is basically helping people to accept and go through and handle uncertainty.
mm,
What was it like for you um, to go through that uncertainty by yourself? Because I remember your business was solid and income was
mm,
definitely solid, and you've been able, and it's not like you were a single man, you've got three kids,
mhm,
and they're
mhm,
growing, and you've got to provide for them. What was that like being in that uncertain times for you?
mm. Yeah, this was you referred to the time that we lost our mobile business, right? Which was in 2011. I
Yeah,
mean,
also with all your experimenting, to
oh, okay.
and all that stuff, it's not just that one thing.
No, well, I mean, one of the principles I think that I now live by is that if there's enough money coming in to put the kids to school and to have food on the table, that's actually fine. That's enough, right? And everything else is a bonus. Especially now, you can see that everything else is definitely a bonus because it can be gone pretty quickly. So if with that attitude, I was actually much more relaxed around the whole money bit. So uh, I, I I always tell people that I just need to sell one house every year in Indonesia and I can live. And that's really how it is, right? So I'm building and selling houses here. If I sell one house a year, then I'm fine. So every year that I sell one house, actually the security of being able to pay for school and pay for the food is sort of done. And just simplifying things to that extent has really helped, I think. And then the rest is, and I think I've spent a lot of time, money, energy, and in experimenting. But I also believe that um, you should not give up experimenting because you never know what's going to work. So it's okay to change or pivot, as the way they call it in startups, right? And I find it a bit of basically you change your mind, right? You go and do something else. I think it's good to do that. There's a bit of a balance. You need to give it enough effort to try if it works before you go and shift to something else, I think. But it's okay to try a lot of things, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to have money loss. And you need to get used to that, because if you're really digging to what you really want to do and digging in what you want to do with your life, I mean, it will require some experimentation, because if everybody knew what they wanted to do with their life, the world would be a different place. But many people are searching to this question. But I think the answer is only found in the experimentation. So the more you experiment, the more you try, the more you will find out what you really like.
But it's interesting because in a way that a lot of people worry about money, and I can only say
Mm,
that because I've also been through the journey.
mm,
But at the same time, it's pretty logical, isn't it? You can calculate your life style in terms of dollars and cents, right? And then you can also, like you said, you sell one house, that's all done for the year. Basically, everything is math. All your
mm.
worries, if you just take the time to think about it logically, it can be planned for, and it
Yes.
can be calculated. All right, I need a certain income in my business. That's why, like right now, if I'm coaching people, I say life goals before business goals. What do you need in life? And then therefore let's look at that business and see how much it can generate. Why do you think people not enough people are doing that? A lot of people are doing worries and worrying things, but not really taking the logical steps.
Mm. Well, I think because it's the scenarios you're thinking about are not nice to think about, so it's better not to think about them, so you don't have to worry about them. I guess that's a lot of it. And the other thing that is related to this is you can actually do with a lot less. A lot of people think, oh, I need to keep my income this way because there's a lot of lifestyle increases. You buy bigger house, bigger car, more cars, whatever. Also, in my case, right, I know what's going to happen if I have less money than what I'm planning to have. My kids need to go to a different school because that's my biggest expense. Is that such a disaster? Well, they won't like it, but I mean, can be done. It's not, it's not. There are scenarios that you can think about for when things get worse than you plan, and those are actually quite acceptable for the most part. So as long as you're okay with those kind of scenarios as well, then I think you have a lot more freedom to do what you want to do. But I think the main reason why maybe not many people think that simple as, okay, do the numbers is maybe because they're scared, or maybe they're, it requires you to think, what happens if I lose my job? The good thing now we're in a situation that a lot of people need to think about that. So it will give a lot of awakening and a lot of realization, and a lot of realization. I think that, things are going to be okay, right? It's going to be fine. Yes, you might need to make some changes. Yes, you might need to sell your house. Yes, you might need to leave your house, whatever it is. But there will be solutions for the new situation that we're in.
Yeah. But I think some people do like being in that worry state. It gives them something to talk
Mm.
about, it gives them something to chat about, isn't it? I mean, sometimes like putting a logical twist to it, actually, you might actually find a solution and then you'll have nothing else to talk about. Whoops,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends a bit. I mean, if I reflect back to this time when our business went down, I was in such a worry state that I was physically not able anymore to take myself out of it. So I basically, it took me 3 months, and then I burned out, and I slept long hours, and I couldn't really think anymore. And only at that point, you need somebody else to take you out of this loop of doom. I think you need to find a way to break through this cycle, because at some point you can't do it on your own anymore. And there might be people listening or watching this that are in a state like that, where they're so in a worry state that they can't get out. And if you need help, you need help. You need to get somebody to pull you out. And that doesn't mean, hey, wake up, be normal, be reasonable. Sometimes you need to really shift, like the physical environment. You need to do something to get out of your worry state first, before you can clear your mind to come up with rational solutions to the problem.
Absolutely. Let's talk a bit about millennial power. Tell me more. What are you trying to do, and what kind of millennials do you want to work with?
Yeah, actually, it's a funny story. It was not something I really planned. I'm working with a celebrity here in Indonesia who I know very well. I know him for a long time. He's a talk show host, and I invited him to come and speak to in one of my organizations. And after he did that, I said, "Hey, you know what you should do? You should build a training program. You should train the people that are following you. Young people, millennials, maybe to step up and do something with their life, and motivate them and get them to really really make some good choices in their life." And then he thought about it for 3 seconds, said, "Yeah, that's a great idea, and you need to be in it." And I thought, "Oh, wait a minute, I wasn't planning on doing that, right? I wasn't planning on, being visible, or I was like, okay, I've got a great business idea. He's the guy that can do it. Let me combine the two and let's run it." So that's where it came, but it led me to a path of, okay, so then I need to make content, and I need to speak, then I need to record videos, then I need to make a training program. And that program and that discovery and writing the book about it was actually quite interesting. And we're getting a lot of good feedback from what we're doing. And now's the situation a bit different. We were planning on launching a paid training program, online training program, and live events. Well, those are canceled for the time being. But I think the main reason is that there is, especially in Indonesia, there are very little resources for personal development, and there's only, like, the only term that is really being used here is the motivator, right? Having people motivate you. It's like, you have a car that doesn't want to run, and you ask somebody behind you to push your car forward. But that's not really what personal development is about. It's about discovering yourself and finding out what it is that you want and how you want to do that and how you can do that, and coming over the limiting beliefs you have around yourself and around your future and around your country and around everything, right? So that's what we're trying to address, try to sort of lift the veil around this motivation thing. We're not motivators. We're going to get people to do their own work and their own discovery, and hopefully it will put them on a path of maybe being more dependent on themselves than on their surroundings and their family and their parents.
Why particularly millennials?
If you ask the marketing guy, because it's catchy and it will sell, that's the real honest to God reason. Also, I think it is a generation that is huge in this country, and that will determine the workforce and the business ideas for the next 10, 20 years. So, and they're adults, right? So that's the other thing. We don't want to work with children. So um, this is the generation, I think, that is now ready for this kind of things, and that's why we called it like that. And it's if you address everybody, you address nobody, right? So
Yeah.
targeting everybody is targeting nobody. So I thought, okay, let's scale it down. And it turns out, interestingly enough, it's like 70-80% of our people, our followers, are male instead of female. So for some reason, the male population in Indonesia is a lot more interested in this than the girls.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's already a lot of women movements. So maybe the girls are interested, but they've already been moved by something that's particularly niche to women. Just for the listeners out there who may not understand about the Indonesian demography, not sure if it's still correct, but I think our average age is about 29, and our
That's right.
population is 250 million people. Yeah, so that's quite big. What's what do you see that millennials are going through right now? Because what I do see, I mean, before I left, was a lot of big companies are moving millennial aged people born in the earlier mid 80s, into leadership positions, and a lot of tech companies that grow like 20% a month basically and scale up so quickly, they're being led by really I would consider, because I'm a generation X, we are generation X, they're very young for the responsibilities that they've been expected to deliver. What are they going through right now? And how do you want to help them?
Hmm. Well, that particular segment, so the leaders in those tech companies, they are slightly different from most of the people that we touch, because usually they have overseas degrees, usually they have lived overseas, usually they come from more well-to-do families. So they've already been completely engulfed in like the startup scene and the education systems of the US or Australia or the UK. So I would not even consider them like my target market, because they've already been exposed to so much other things than the people that we talk to. Um, and yes, they are very young and they are in leadership positions, but the people that I'm trying to reach are the people that are more confused about where their future is going to take them. Very often they're sort of indoctrinated by their parents, Gen X or prior to that, views of what's good for them. They've been told to study certain things. We see that a lot, and then they end up in a job, and that's sort of their endpoint. And we want to show them, look, yes, working for somebody is good, but depends. If you have bigger ambitions in terms of wealth and money, then it's maybe good to consider to start something else instead of just having a job, especially in Indonesia where the wages are very, very low. And even though you might be talented, the chances of you taking a position like you're just describing, like at the head of a tech company, I mean, those chances are very small. And again, they're usually given away or not given, assigned to people that have like these foreign kind of grad degrees. So there's a lot of other millennials out there that are really looking for, for meaning in their life and trying to get out of the salary trap to a certain extent, because that's not really rewarding. And also, one of the big things that's slightly different in Indonesia versus other countries is they are quite dependent on their parents in many ways. They sometimes, a lot of them still live with them. If they don't live with them, they are under their support. So we also tell them, look, you're an adult right now. It's time to step up and take responsibility for your own life, pay for your own rent or pay for your own house. Or how are you going to do that? Can you do that with your current job? If not, then let's talk about the fact that a job is changing time for money, right? If you keep doing that, yeah, there's a limit to how much time you can change for money, and then slowly get them into the thinking of maybe you need to start a business, maybe you need to start something that's not depending on your time to really leverage your income, because income is a big thing for them. Breaking out of the income cycle in Indonesia, I think for many of them is really important.
Well, then you're talking into entrepreneurship, right?
Hmm.
Either being self-employed or having a company with multiple people in it. Do you think that can be taught, or do you think some people should just be better off in a job? Because you've been on both ends. You've been an entrepreneur, but you've actually started as an employee, at least in your
Yeah.
mind, an
Yeah,
employee.
yeah, yeah. No, fair. That's very fair to say. Yeah. Um, Absolutely, it can be taught, but I think it needs to come with a reason to do it first. I mean, if you tell people become an entrepreneur, okay, so why? I don't have security of income. I don't have sick leave. I don't have an insurance. Right. So there's all sorts of reasons not to do it. So the reason why to become an entrepreneur needs the pain to become an entrepreneur needs to be big enough first for people to consider the option, I think. And what I'm trying to teach them in the online course that we're doing is I'm trying to get them to do a calculation on, okay, if you just keep exchanging your time for money, where are you going to be? What kind of income are you going to have? And then now let's think about other options, right? Either leveraging your time or building a business or start trading, buying product and selling product, right? Simple version of being an entrepreneur, and see what that can bring you. Because if that pain is big enough that in the end, you're not going to be wealthy if you are in a job in this country, it's very unlikely. Then let's look at the other options that are there. And if that clicks, yeah, then I think we can take people to the next step. But it needs to click first before you can tell people, work for yourself or become an entrepreneur or do something more creative with the way you make your money.
Yeah, and I think living now in the UK, I realize that throughout this coronavirus thing, the government's giving money for people to stay at home. And that just
That's
doesn't
right.
happen where you're at in Indonesia. And so when you're talking about job security, which used to exist, now it doesn't exist, and being furloughed, you don't even get 80% of your salary when you're kind of sort of told to stay home. And yeah, and then it's just very different from a truly developed country, isn't it? So we are kind of raised to kind of fend for ourselves. Yeah.
Mm.
And you're right. I was watching a war movie last night, and the general basically said, when you go to war, the most important thing to take is a reason why. And it's
Mm.
almost the same with what you're saying about entrepreneurship. Yeah. Where do you want this to go, this millennial power to go? What's your vision for it?
Yeah, it's well, my vision for it is that if I can get some traction in Indonesia, I would like to take it international because I think the brand is cool, and I think we've started making some really good materials that we can use anywhere. And I've got some people interested in doing this in other countries who have some experience as either ex Tony Robbins trainers or there's some people, really good people out there. So that would be super super nice. And um, just recently, I did a talk about how this generation operates in the workplace. That's interesting as well. Working with companies to go and talk to them about how this generation actually is very different, I think, from how they are, how the the X's like us are, or the older generation. But I'm still, like with many things, I'm sort of throwing a lot of these things out there to see what clicks and what works and where the interest is, and then we'll morph it into that. But initially, I would like to have a large group of Indonesian millennials going and making some really radical changes in their life to improve themselves. And the only way I can do that now, and even at any point, I think, is do it online. That's a big challenge, but this is the right momentum now because everybody's at home and everybody's online. So I think now is the right momentum to teach people, look, you can actually learn a lot of stuff online if you want to.
Exactly. Well, a lot of millennial topics always discuss the challenge with millennials, the weaknesses
Mm,
of millennials. They weren't. Well, you deal, and I've seen some of your interviews. You've interviewed many of them. What is
right.
the strength
Yes.
of that generation? What are they absolutely genius at?
Well, I don't know if there's one thing, but I think what we're underestimating is how aware they are about what's going on in the rest of the world. And of course, that has to do with the internet, right? The internet generation. They have been brought up with internet. They have access to all sorts of things. So they are very aware about what's going on in the world. So their vision of what's possible is already quite broad. But then they come back to the situation in Indonesia and they worry, or they are confused about how to execute that. Um, but that is really different. I mean, a lot of these guys, they are really aware what's going on, what's going on in the US and Europe, what's going on in startups, what technology is out there. So that gives them a huge advantage over the generation before that because they're very unaware for the most part about what's possible, right? So I think that's a huge advantage they have. Now they just need to find a way to implement and leverage that in a country that, yes, it is Indonesia is catching up, but a lot of stuff is still very basic and very manual for the most part. Right?
All right.
Nowadays, school, I mean, you can see it now when coronavirus caused all the schools to close and the kids to study at home. The expensive international schools like the school my children go to, they are ready for that, right? The day after that happened, they basically were online. But
Yes.
the local schools, they're really struggling, right? They are, they're recording and posting videos on YouTube. They have difficulties finding ways to do things live, and that is like a sign for how things are, right? Yes, there is, if you come to Jakarta and you see startup scene, you think, wow, it's all lively, but that's only a very, very small, tiny bit of the economy here. A lot of my entrepreneurial friends who are in, more traditional kinds of businesses, they are really, really worried now because, if you're in manufacturing and you got a couple of thousand people in your factory, what are you going to do, right? So there's a revolution in business models, I think, for those companies that need to go through. And I think this generation will be really good in helping them in doing it because they do have a lot of exposure to what's available and what's out there.
Yeah, that's true. I talk a lot about the entrepreneurship school for underprivileged kids that we've been supporting for the last 10 years. It was quite cool that some of our coaches are coaching them online now. And they took a picture of them looking at the screen of that coach, and they're doing the group coaching online. And I think, yeah, they're very comfortable with it. And
Hmm.
even people in villages nowadays, they've got a mobile phone. I think there's more mobile phones in Indonesia than there are people, isn't there?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
very, very possible. Yeah.
that's really cool. Well, thanks for spending time with us today. And I always like to ask like three random questions, at the end of it, just because it's fun and I learn a lot from it. So, Erik, the purpose of your life is?
That's like such a coaching question. Yeah, I think you've asked me this before, actually, but
I don't care.
um,
You can come back
but
to
it's and
it.
to be very honest, I'm thinking about this, and I think that's like if you ask somebody in a bar, what's the purpose of your life? I mean, I think 99% of people wouldn't be able to answer it, right? So it's really a tough
Buy
one.
you another drink though, but that's the
Yeah,
great.
that
Shut up,
might be the
right? You
case. That
just
might be the
drink.
case. But I think, as I mature, and I sort of spoke a little bit about this already, I think the real value of life is to be of contribution to others in whatever way possible. And I think in the old days, I thought, okay, the way I can be of contribution to others is make as much money as I can, and then give it to people that need it, right? But that's actually not the most important commodity I have. The most important commodity I have is my time, my attention, my knowledge, my insights. Hopefully, some smart things that I know and that I can teach other people. So I think for me, that's now, trying to touch people in my life, and I literally need to touch them. They need to be close enough for me to feel to make an impact on them. And hopefully, they'll learn something from me, and they, make some improvements in their life. And it's always nice to hear, like what you were saying, that, a conversation we had a long time ago has impacted you. And, in return, you've done the same for me, because I've done, some coaching with my wife with you, and it has really impacted my life at that point. And that's always nice, right? That's really the gems that you can take out of life, right? That people, have been impacted in some way by what you've done.
Cool.
Long answer to the purpose of life, but I think that's what it is. Contribute to others in a
Contribute to
meaningful
others.
way.
I
Yeah.
definitely see that. I definitely see that in you, and I totally agree. It's not this big, bold, and amazing contributions. It's the little things that we do, and based on
Mm,
what we have, right? Um, if you could change one thing about your life, what would it be?
yeah. Um, I think the main one thing that I want to change, and I am going to change within the next couple of years, is that I would like to really have a mobile lifestyle. So I would like to be able to be in 2 or 3 places in the world in a year, and be able to generate income, be able to live, be able to interact. Um, I've always been joking to my wife. I think, I want to have an apartment in Jakarta, one in Holland, and an RV in the US, and then spend 3 months between each of these locations. And it's been on my mind so many times that at some point I'm sure it's going to happen. So, um, and the reason for that is because I think what I'm doing now and what I will be doing in the future I would easily be able to do that from anywhere. So then why lock myself up in one place? So that's one thing I would want to change, and I'm going to change at some point.
Good. And what would you like to be remembered for?
For being on your podcast. Kidding. Well,
That's it. The
that's part
recording's
of it. Yeah,
done.
yeah. Recording's done.
That's it. That was the
Um,
important sentence.
yeah. So you can play this to all your future guests. Say at the end, you need to say this, right? So this is the key.
Thanks for reading the script
Um,
there.
yeah, no, I think it's related to impacting people, and I think I'd hope to be remembered as somebody that has impacted my family and my friends, and who else, whoever else came in touch with me. I hope that they are positively impacted by what I do, and I think I'm working very hard on myself to be more positive and more putting this contribution side of me forward to really live that without any expectation of anything coming back from it. And then, as I said, I'll trust the universe will provide in that case.
Yeah. Erik, always nice to talk to you. And yeah, when this is all over, we need to get back together and you give me more food for thought and we exchange food for thought together. It's always very nice. And thank you so much for what you're doing in the Millennial Power and what you're doing in your own life to contribute. So all the best in your endeavors. And
Thank you.
hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Sure. Thank you very much.